Здравейте на първия по рода си подкаст на Hills of Business. Днес наш гост е Арик Дроми. Той е футурист, консултант, консултира корпоративни клиенти, както и е keynote speaker. Така че днес ще проведем нашия подкаст на английски и искаме да го приветстваме за това, че е част вече от нашата общност. So, hey Aric, can you share a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in Bulgaria? What drove you to come here?
I mean, this is a very short. What drove me is my wife. My wife is Bulgarian. I mean, but to be honest, my first encounter with Bulgaria was a little bit over 16 years ago, and I think it was very much love in first sight. I've been traveling all around the world throughout my career, and I think Plovdiv is the place I felt most at home. And it took us many years as we were living in Sweden. Our kids went to school, so I think we just waited for the fact and for the moment the kids will leave home so we can be free, and that's what's brought us here, at least from a personal point of view. I think the more interesting for me is maybe the more professional perspective is that I always find Bulgaria extremely attractive when it comes to innovation and invention. And yes, there is a certain type of inheritage that pushes the culture to innovate. If you're looking about just communism, right? So that's the shortened things that happened when the lack of things created the need to create things, and I think that's the core for any innovation. So friction, the existence of friction in the history of Bulgaria made Bulgarian people very innovative. And when I say it, a lot of Bulgarians tell me, "Oh, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about." But I think there is a very broad lack of understanding of what innovation is all about. We still think innovation is about flat screens everywhere, but I don't think that is innovation. I think that is a technology for the sake of technology. I think there is a very good way of solving problems in the Bulgarian culture where other systems, other cultures will not be able to solve. Here, there is a very good capacity for problem solving, and for me, that's what innovation is all about. And it really intrigues me, and I feel very comfortable in the professional life being here as well. So that's the shorter story that became long somehow.
Okay, and can you share with our audience who is Aric Dromi?
I think we talked about it before today. I'm 51, so I try to be nobody. I spent the better half of the last 23 years standing on stages. I fondly nicknamed myself as a futurologist, and every company that I worked with adopted it, so I was very happily surprised. I stood on stages for the last 23 years and talked about the future. I often define myself as a person that helps companies tell stories about futures that could happen, and then work with the management team to design the strategic trajectory of a future that should happen from the brand or the company point of view. I never finished university in the traditional sense because I constantly, maybe it's the grass is always greener on the other course. So if it started with theater and literature, it moved to technology and networking communication, and then it went to history. And very fast I discovered that education is not a 3 years boom stop. It's what we are born to do, to constantly learn. And I don't have what I define as a useless MBA. No offense, but it's
I have it in a wardrobe somewhere.
Exactly. So we can get to that, talking about the need to shift from MBA to MBI. But I think overall, I find it very fulfilling to learn something new every day. So I constantly take new courses, constantly try to adapt the learning to what I do, and it fits. As a futurologist, you constantly need to update yourself. I mean, you don't just study once and try to apply it. But I also had a run through some big corporations like Microsoft, Ericsson. Last year I spent 8 months as the strategy and creative director for Volkswagen commercial vehicles in the UK. I spent 10 years as the in-house futurologist for Volvo cars. So I have enough scars on my back from corporate environment. And I took a decision that I never want to work for big corporations again because the scars. And today I basically try to build a creative ecosystem in Bulgaria that can bring what I learned and what partnership can bring to the table. And I think at the end of the day, my main goal is how can this type of partnership push the Bulgarian GDP, 0.1% every year. I'm not care about the 10% because you're putting so much effort into nothing. So how do we make small steps to create transformative changes? And I think it's very relevant for the conversations we're going to have in the workshop is that most companies try to do these transformative, disruptive innovations, but we're ignoring the fact that no disruptions can exist without a base. And everything we see around us happen in incremental steps. So how do we make these small incremental steps with the North Star of disruption or transformation in the future? So.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about let me paraphrase the question. What should people expect from the workshop and why should they come to it? What is the aim? What do you think they will gain most about it?
I mean, we nicknamed the workshop fondly Bulgarian 2030. Mainly because it's simpler for people to think in 4 to 5 years trajectories, and we are 2025, so 2030. And I think Bulgaria is sitting on a very interesting crossroad at the moment. There is tentative decisions to cross into the Eurozone. We don't need to like it, we don't need to hate it, we just need to find a way to monetize it. And the idea of Bulgaria 2030 is to talk about monetization model regarding what future, what exists around the corner. Magic can happen and Bulgaria can decide we are not joining the Eurozone. Okay, so how do we monetize that? Like it or not, Bulgaria is too small to survive by itself. It's not going to work. Now, if I compare it to certain Fortune 500 companies, Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon's, they are not going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever, but it will be very hard to break them down because they are too big to fail. We don't need to like them, but they are too big to fail. Bulgaria is not in the place that they can say we are too big to fail, because failure can come for every single company over here. Most of the Bulgarian economy is built out of companies that were established by one person in the 90s. And I mean, if they were built in the 90s, I'm sure that person is quite old right now. And the lack of...
That's one of the biggest problems of the business, that the majority of business is owned by very old people who they doesn't understand any of the new technology, which is exactly disrupting the entire ecosystem.
Exactly, and they also don't have they don't have the mental model.
Yeah.
And that's without any judgment. They don't have the mental model of appointing someone to inherit them or actually giving the serpent to someone else.
Or very common, the children of these people, they doesn't want to do anything with the business.
And that's the challenge for a place like Bulgaria. And I think that the chances are Bulgaria will cross to the Eurozone, but even if we decide not to cross to the Eurozone, how do we monetize this situation? Because the Eurozone is a huge market for growth. And what happened through the last years, something that I found that it's quite amazing is 2000, the first time I came to Bulgaria 16 years ago, the majority of grocery shops was Bulgaria grocery shops. Today it's only T-Market that I can go in that is a Bulgarian grocery shop, while the rest of the market was taken by the German giants. But T-Mobile never utilized the fact that it sits on such a fertile land and they can create like a digital agricultural connections to the rest of Europe. So their market is being cannibalized by companies that are doing the same, but just better. And T-Mobile never entered at the market. And I mean, this is what I want to talk about in the workshop. How do we look? How do we rethink our brand? How do we think our growth looking into entering into a single currency zone. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's how do we monetize that shift. On top of that, Bulgaria has it's not the strongest, it's the most stable currency in the European Union because the Bulgarian National Bank took some very smart strategic decisions. Moving into the euro, that means everything is going to fluctuate. And there aren't any branding or marketing tools in Bulgaria to actually handle currency fluctuation. So you need already now to start thinking on your strategic, narratives when you're handling these type of fluctuations. You're also going to be exposed to so many companies that are doing the same of what you do in the Eurozone, so how do you differentiate yourself? I think the main purpose of the workshop is to, these are the questions I actually need to ask myself, because I'm not here to give you answers. I cannot give answers to any one business except if I'm familiar with the business. But we need to find a way to ask the right answers and invest 30% of our time finding answers for these questions, sorry, yes, we need the right questions, if we want to scale into other markets.
Yeah, the other thing is that if you ask most people how they do their pricing, you will find out they do it on magic. They don't use any formula. So exactly this what you're mentioning about fluctuation, this is not in the price formation, because there was never price formation. So basically, even just for that, they have to, as you said, rethink the entire strategy.
Exactly. I think I just read in last week that some of the German brands, the biggest retailers, they started to put both prices in euros and in lev. And then the elderly people, they immediately thought every product had a discount, 50% discount, and they came and that just showed me how much the big retailers simply doesn't understand the market here, which is very, very sad. I think it's pricing, it's brand identity, it's the communication strategy. You cannot use the same type of communication strategy that you have to sell your products today if you're trying to expand into other markets. So every market has its own cultural heritage that you need to cater to. Every market has its own habits, its own icons that you need to understand. A lot of companies will just try to put a e-commerce shop and invite everyone in the world to come and buy, and then they will just run after the logistics instead of figure out how do we do it one market at a time. So these are the things that I would like to cover and talk about.
As far as I understood, on the 3rd of July, the event is going to be called Bulgaria 2030.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about how first the Eurozone is going to impact our economy and what ways people can use to monetize on all of this.
Yes, I think it's, and you defined it good, it's how the Eurozone will impact the economy, regardless if Bulgaria adopts the euro or not adopting the euro. That will be one part of the umbrella of every business has the things they know that they know. It's very easy. They have the things that they know that they don't know. It's a bit more complicated because we are lazy to try to solve that. And I think the rest of the conversation will be about the things that we don't know that we don't know.
Okay.
And I think there are a lot of challenges that happens around. Take for example just the ChatGPT and other GPTs that exist out there. That came as a storm to certain type of industries, and industries that understand how to adopt it into their processes actually doing quite well today, but others are, they are losing at this moment of time. And it's also per community. So the developing the communities of developers, they're massively losing. Microsoft is getting rid of 3,000 developers right now, replacing it by, I'm not sure what AI Microsoft is using at the moment, but by an AI. The community itself is losing because they were not able to think, how do we actually monetize the monster that we're actually programming? And this is the second part of the workshop.
Yes, and we have this major shift in industries while, for example, complete job, certain types of job are no longer useful to the market. But this doesn't mean that the job need, the workload is decreasing, it's just that the market is changing, and the people that are fast to adapt the new tech, the AI, will be even more efficient and can do much more with less resources. But you still need the people to run the whole thing, because we can, I mean...
I'm a huge advocate for humanity. I have a very long background in tech. I think just saying like we are going to implement ChatGPT in our organization because McKinsey told me to do it or because an organization, a competitor is doing it, is the wrong way of doing that. The challenge for companies in Bulgaria that are in the tech industry is that there isn't a lot of tech being developed in Bulgaria. So the entire business for the strategy is revolving around a technology that was developed in another culture. And it's a wrong way to do that. So we don't start with the strategy, we start with the tech. And then we develop the strategy around, but we don't have any clue how this tech is going to influence our strategy. And it's a challenge for a lot of big corporations, and it's a challenge for some small corporations as well. I think that the overarching idea that, I mean, no one can predict the future, but we need to have enough tools in our backpack to be able to handle whatever the future bring. We are all becoming obsolete, including us around this table. And we are becoming obsolete because the future doesn't require a human 2.0. We cannot treat the future as an update because, I mean, every time we do an update, I mean, we're all coming from the software industry, we understand how everything crashed. So you think human 2.0, everything will crash. I mean, our identity, the way we do business, the marketing, everything is changing, and it's making everything we have right now obsolete. We are slowly retired by time, and it's really not a failure, it's an inflection point, and it's enable us to do a reset for our thinking. And if we do this smart reset, if we constantly, I mean, one of the things that in Bulgaria, we get a little bit of money, we buy a BMW, even so we cannot insure us, right? It is what it is, it's the culture. But imagine if we can convince small businesses to take the Amazon approach or the China approach, and every time you get the money, reinvest it. I mean, yes, you will be on you will be on more or less, zero, but you have assets that are modular, that can help you to face anything that is coming against you. That's the approach I would like businesses to take, and you don't do it overnight. You don't need to reinvest everything, but decide that 30% of my profit is going to be reinvested because it gives me another model that can generate revenues because this is what's coming 2 years from now. That's the challenge that businesses, they need to overcome. How do I think like that? Especially for a one-person company, which a lot of small businesses are one-person company. And so...
Yeah, there is also a very big, issue here with the business that they think of marketing as sort of expense. So it's why we should, do marketing, while everywhere around the world usually invest 5 to 15% directly into marketing. You don't always see the outcome right away. You don't always do this. You don't even have to do it with a very good strategy, but you have to test stuff, because when you test them, eventually you find your channel and you can add it to the strategy, assuming you have a strategy.
Yes, assuming you have a strategy, there is a big confusion between tactic and strategy. So everyone has a tactic, only few has a strategy today. I'll pick it up because I think that marketing is the wrong word. We need to create engagement models, so invest in engagement model. I mean, if you're looking at Tesla, Elon Musk spends $0 on marketing every year, but everything else goes on engagement. I don't think we should have chief marketing officers, we should have chief engagement officers. It doesn't change the idea that we need to invest on that. Because, I mean, people are lazy by default, and driving across the highway, I'm really curious to go to FBET and tell them, please show me the return on investment on all of the signs you put on the roads. I'm really curious to, so if they listen to the podcast, I will, here's my email, give me let's see. I would like to see, because I think it's a bling bling, and we need to differentiate between bling bling marketing and engagement marketing. Engagement marketing is what's create growth. Bling bling marketing doesn't do anything. So if we will remove all of the FBET signs from the road, how much will they lose? Like 20% of their revenues? I fucking doubt it. it needs to correlate. So we need to think about return on investment, on engagement, and that's strategic thinking, not tactical thinking. We need to think about return on equity. We need to think about return on engagement in the end of the day, because if you create an engagement model, what's the return for the bottom line? And most people are afraid to spend on that. I fully agree, and they need to spend on that if they want to grow.
Well, there is few things that we know that were going to happen now with the Eurozone. I think the decision have been made long time in a room somewhere in Europe, and this is in Bulgaria. It's just talk, but I think it's since the banks already start moving the prices in lev in euro. It's clear what is going to happen. But the thing is that most people, I think, don't realize this. In disruptions, there's always big winners and big losers. And if they doesn't have a strategy, they won't be the one of the winners. And since Bulgaria is very poorly digitalized, most people in their own industry doesn't understand how little it takes to be on top. And they think, oh, this company, spends 20,000 per month for marketing, but they have no engagement. So with very small amount of money, they can catch up to the big companies. And I think this is one of the things that either they're too busy or they never thought about it this way.
I think maybe it's a combination between the two of them. In the end of the day, and one of the things we are going to talk about in the workshop, and one of the things we will introduce is a methodology that is called Forma, that try to use context as a design material. And it's coming from the idea that most of organizations that I met, they think strategy document is their holy grail. So they build it like a losha, right? It's a statue that's standing on top of the hill, and it's carved in stone, and you can just look at it. That is not a strategy, right? Strategy is the dirtiest room. It's a dirty workshop, which constantly shapes the materials that you are dealing with on a daily basis. That is strategy. Strategic thinking is something that evolves all the time. It's something that enables you to see, both broad and narrow. It is a workshop. It is a dirty room. And nothing is timeless today, right? Nothing lasts forever, especially if you're looking about all of the design products, if you're looking about the phones we have in the product, they're literally specifically designed to last for 3 to 5 years. Nothing is timeless. And we need to move away from I'm building a timeless business to I'm building a timeful business. And that's the basic of Forma, shifting from timeless to timefulness. Timefulness is the ability to adapt and change yourself and constantly expand and retract based on the condition. And that is something that strategic business schools, they don't teach. If you're looking into Steve Jobs, and this is from an inside perspective, Steve Jobs' way of looking into strategy, he says a strategy should never be more than 1 page. Everything beyond that is tactic. And then we are captured into these illusions of Simon Sinek, everything starts with why. No, it doesn't start with why, because if you're just trying to explain why you're doing things before you define what you want to do, you're in the wrong place of the conversation. So everything starts with what, then it needs to go to why, but the answer also needs to make sense in the end of the day, right? So it's what I want to do, why I want to do it, and how I want to do it. And this is also catering to another aspects that we are going to cover in the workshop, is like, what do I need, what do I want, what do I wish for? And we confuse these things, right? And they're fundamental to any business. And what do you need? That's your incremental steps. What do you want? That's your radical steps. What do you wish for? That's your transformative steps. So how do we implement this type of thinking? And we will go for a set of exercises and tools that they can actually, the participant can implement the morning after. I don't know if we're drinking, maybe the 2 days after in their practice.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this insight, Aric. It was a pleasure to talk to you. Now, what I would advise you do is just look into this camera and give an invitation to the people watching to the event that's happening on the 3rd of July.
So we are going to have pizza, beer, and strategic insight sessions. Pizza and beer, right?
Yeah.
And strategic session really trying to understand what does it mean for your business to exist in 2030. What do you need to exist in 2030? It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get a set of tools that you can actually implement the morning after at your business, and you will be part of a community that is trying to create a meaningful growth to Bulgaria by 2030. So really, I'm looking forward for everyone to come.